All right, folks, welcome back. Today I want to continue our look at the M855a1. Now, in case you missed the last video, the M855a1 is the current United States military general purpose round in 5.56. It's called the EPR, the Enhanced Performance Round, and it replaces the old M855 green tips. So I had a generous viewer send me 62 of these rounds. These aren't available on the commercial market as far as I know, but we managed to get a hold of 62 of them, and the point of the last video was to check accuracy. We checked accuracy in 3 different guns, and it was pretty bad in all of them. Our best group was right here with my 18-inch SPR barrel with a 1 in 7 twist. We did a 10-shot group of 1.89 inches, and if we remove shot number 1, the best 9 went into 1.48 inches. Let's try removing 8. There we are. So the best 8 shots went into 1.15 inches. Not terrible. Kind of, what we were expecting. Good enough for battlefield accuracy, right? And that's what it's all about. After the testing in the last video, I was left with 32 rounds. And what I want to do today is tear them apart, and I want to take these bullets and load them with some of my favorite powders. And I also want to try and take the powder and load it with a different 62 grain bullet. I'm not sure that we'll see anything dramatic here, probably not, but I thought it would make for a fun little test with a bullet that, is just, these bullets aren't available to us as reloaders as of right now. So I thought it would be fun to play around with it as a novelty. So I've already gotten started. You might see some, empty brass back here and some bullets laying here. I've pulled apart all but 5. I wanted to save a couple to show you guys the process. The first thing I'm doing is I'm using a Kinetic bullet puller. There we go, one of these guys right here. Now what happens is this upper part screws off, a round goes in here and you tighten it down so the round gets held tightly right here, and then you pound this thing like a hammer and the bullet comes out of the round and gets collected right here. Not too complicated, and these are actually coming apart halfway decent. Now, here's another problem. I need to get a new bullet puller. This one's a little bit worn out. There's a couple other types of bullet pullers. Actually, I've got one laying right here. This is there we go, the grip and pull. You use this with the press to, to grab a hold of the bullet, and then use the press to, pull the case off of the bullet. Well, the problem with these is there's potential, and it's actually pretty likely that will damage the bullet a little bit, and I want these bullets in the very best shape I can get them. Same way with there's a Hornady cam lock bullet puller that I have, but it uses a collet to go down over the bullet and pinch it and then pull it up. So didn't want to use any of those. I figured the Kinetic bullet puller would give me the best way of being sure that I could keep the bullets in really good condition. And also this thing, I cleaned it out really, really well. So I'm able to collect the powder out of here without, too much contamination or gunk. I made sure it was nice and clean and that we would get clean powder. So here's the problem. I need a new one of these. The collet, this is the collet that normally goes in the bullet puller. You might already notice it's got some wear spots on it. Well, what happens, brass goes up through this and then that pinches down there to grab a hold of it. Well, the problem where it's worn out, this is slipping through. So the other day on the Twitch stream, somebody had recommended that I try a shell holder instead. So that's what I've been doing, but I've been screwing up this brass using this method because, a shell holder fit is not that great. So we're basically putting the case in the shell holder, turning it upside down, and then slamming it really hard. And what's happening is I'm damaging the rim of my cases. But that's okay. I'm not too worried about salvaging the brass. I'm more worried about the bullets and the powder, because the brass, we already have access to Lake City brass. We know Lake City brass really well. And same deal with the primers. I'm not too worried about salvaging those. So I think testing just, the bullet with some different powders and the powder with some different bullets should keep us busy enough. But okay, so here's what I'm doing. Shell goes into the shell holder. This drops down into the bullet puller. This gets screwed on top. And I've actually got a vise set up over here on the bench with a little anvil on the back as something to pound on. Can kind of watch this one is nice and clear, but you probably can't see it through it. Maybe you can see the cantilever away from the case mouth. I can tell this bullet's already moving. So a couple more pops should be all that it takes. Almost there. There it went. So now our bullet and powder is stuck down there at the bottom. Perfect. I use this little bowl here. Catch the powder in the bullet and make sure and tap it really well to get all of the powder out. Then grab the bullet. Now these bullets are all coming out the same way. Try and get some better close-up pictures, but they've got this greasy tar goopy sealant crap around the bearing surface of the bullet. So clearly they're sealed with some sort of stuff. And that's another reason why I'm not that concerned about not reusing the brass, because I assume there's a bunch of this goop and crap inside the neck of the brass, and it would probably come out in a wet tumbler no problem. But yeah, it's just one more reason to not worry about the brass in this video. So that's it. That's the bullet. Put that in the pile of bullets. I'll grab a scale here. Double check it with a check weight. Yep, 20.0. Scale's looking good. Then we take our powder charge and just dump it into the pan. And that load looks like 26.6. Lift it up and set it back down. Yeah, it looks like it wants to be 0.7. It wants to be 0.6. We'll give it one more try here. Yep, let's call it 0.7. So what I've been doing is keeping track. 26.7 has actually been the most common charge weight so far. And there's another one. Then I grabbed this old pill bottle. That's where I've been collecting all of the powder. Dump that guy right in there. And then move on to the next one. So let me do these next 4, and then we'll move on from this point. Okay, so here's our powder. And it is just a standard looking ball powder. It doesn't have any interesting odor. It doesn't have any interesting flecks or specks or anything noticeable. Size of the granules is pretty average. It's just, yeah, this is just plain old ball powder. Here's the charge weight distribution I came up with. I had one light one down at 26.2, but all of the rest were between 26.4 and 26.8, with the most being 26.7. Now I know I did have some lossage. Can you see all the black specks? Like I lost some powder, whether it was the bullet puller or the transfer from the bullet puller to here or from here to the scale or, you know, whatever. So like that one that really got light, 26.2, maybe that was one of the ones where I lost some. I don't know, not really sure. But this seems like a really good spread. Charge weights are not all over the place, very consistent. And it looks like 26.7 is our number. Now I believe this powder is known and sometimes shows up on the surplus market, SMP 842 or WC 842. I think that's the powder that's supposed to be in these M855a1 rounds, and like I said, it does show up out there sometimes, but I've never had a chance to play with it, mess with it, so don't really know much about it. Okay, next are the bullets. I was really worried these were going to be almost impossible to clean up, but they are cleaning up very nicely. So all of that black gunk is coming off with just some 99% isopropyl alcohol is what I'm using to clean them up. So these are looking really good. I'll try and get some better pictures of it. But one thing I did notice as I'm cleaning them up, all of them seem to have a little bit of a ring on the ogive of the bullet. So I don't know if that's from the seating stem on the initial loading. That's one thing I'm a little bit worried about is our seating stem choice for this bullet and making sure we stay away from this junction between the tip and the jacket and get good contact with the ogive during the bullet seating operation. I don't know. We'll get to that here in a few minutes, but for the time being, all I want to do is take some alcohol with a rag and get them all looking like this. All right, so our bullets are all cleaned up and ready to go, and they cleaned up really nicely. Actually, that might be a decent view to show you what I was talking about on the ogive. It looks like there's a little bit of a mark where the seating stem at the factory maybe wasn't the best fit. I don't know. Hopefully we can find something that works. Okay, so I've got all these guys pulled out and cleaned up. There are a couple things I wanted to test on these bullets. First is their weight. This one's got a black Sharpie mark on it from my earlier sorting. So first was weight. The bullet weights were pretty darn consistent. There was a light group and then there was a heavy group, but total spread from the lightest bullet to the heaviest bullet, we're looking at, what is that? 7/10 of a grain? That seemed pretty reasonable to me. Now the next way I wanted to measure these was with the Hornady bullet comparator. It's got a little hole in it right there that the bullet can go down into. And it looks like, so it comfortably clears the, the junction. All right, drop it. All right, let's try and keep our hands on it this time. It clears that junction there, and I was hoping it would also avoid that little bit of a ring. And it looks like it does. So whenever this goes down, it stops about right there. So that's about where our contact is happening. So what this lets you do is measure the bullet base. So we want to measure from the base of the bullet to that point on the ogive of the bullet where this stops. So what we do is install these on our calipers, just like that, and then zero our calipers, and we can take the bullet base to ogive measurement with each of these. Getting each one straight and getting the right measurement takes a little bit of practice. That one reads 0.607 inches, or 0.6065 inches. And then we go to the next one. It's a little bit shorter at 0.6060 inches. All right, you get the idea. So that's bullet base to ogive. This measurement, I was shocked by how much difference there was. The shortest measured 0.6050 and the longest measured 0.6150. That's a full 10,000ths of an inch from shortest to longest. Now also with these, I found it kind of funny on the chart. There's a kind of a lighter group and a heavier group. And for the most part, the lighter bullets, from whenever I weighed them all, ended up being the shorter bullets. And the heavier bullets were the longer bullets. There were a few exceptions, but for the most case, that stayed pretty true. So here's what I want to do. I want to sort these bullets by the bullet base to ogive. So after I sorted them by bullet base to ogive, I took the 5 longest and made them a group, and then the next 5 and made them a group. Luckily, I had 2 extra bullets that I wasn't planning to load, so I actually took those out of the heavier grouping. But whatever, you get the idea. I grouped them as well as I could by bullet base to ogive measurement. And that's what you see, these little kind of piles of 5 I've got back here. Yep, another one over here off camera just a little bit. So that's going to be our 5 different groups, are with those specific bullets. All right, so I think we're pretty much ready to rock. I mean, we're ready to start loading. Now, with our 855a1 powder, what I want to shoot is a different 62 grain bullet. So I've got some Hornadys right here. This is a 62 grain Hornady hollow point boat tail. Shot some of these in the past and they shoot pretty well. So I expect a pretty good group. And I want to shoot the same charge weight of powder that was in the 855a1. So our average, or not really our average, our most common found charge weight was 26.7 grains. So I'm going to load these on top of 26.7 grains of our 855a1 powder. So that's pretty straightforward. Now for the 855a1 bullets, I want to load up 25 of them. And I've pulled out 3 different powders. The first one is Alliant PowerPro Varmint. The second is Alliant AR Comp. And the third is IMR 8208 XBR. Now to come up with a charge weight, I looked at a bunch of different data for 62 grain bullets, 63 grain bullets, even some 69 grain bullets, which that's what I meant to show you a minute ago. We'll get to it here in a second. But I looked at a bunch of different load data sources and came up with just some generic charge weights. I want to stay safe with these. We're not trying to match the original velocities or anything. This is just a nice, safe, generic charge weight of these 3 powders, or at least that's what I'm hoping for a 62 grain bullet. So PowerPro Varmint, 23.5 grains, and then AR Comp and 8208 XBR, I want to shoot 22.5 grains. Just kind of taking it easy. I tell you what, let me switch the camera around. I want to show you what just popped in my head a second ago. Okay, so here's one of our 855a1 bullets. And if I grab the 62 grain Hornady, let's line this guy up right beside it. Look at the size difference. It's massive. So the Hornady has got a lead core, which means it's much more dense and can be smaller than the M855a1, lead-free design. And if we look at like where the cantilures line up, so the cantilever normally goes at the mouth of your brass. So you'll see the tips line up pretty close, so that's pretty straightforward. But look at the bottom and how much difference there is between about how much how much bullet is going to protrude down into the case. The difference is massive, right? So we're going to run out of space for powder much sooner with the 855a1 bullet than we do with a standard 62 grainer. So just because of that bullet down into the case so far is going to raise our pressures by a lot. That's why I'm trying to be as safe as I can with these powder charge weights, because if I take load data for this bullet or a bullet like this and then shoot it with this bullet that has less effective case capacity because the bullet's sticking down in there farther, we're going to have very high pressures, potentially blow your face off sort of situations. That's what we want to avoid. So here's the other question I've got. So with these bullets, or actually with the factory rounds, like, yep, here's one right there. I want to have a look and see what our overall length is. It should be like 2.250, something in that range. There it is. The first one's 2.255. The next one is 2.252. You get the idea. It's right in that ballpark. We can't go past 2.260 normally because we need to be able to fit our rounds in a magazine. But I'm wondering at 2.260, how much jump to the rifling do we actually have with this bullet? So let's check that really quick. All right, so here's the upper we're going to be shooting. Here's an empty piece of 223-556 brass that I've cut the neck on. What I like to do sometimes is, let's grab a bullet and let's start it in there. So it's definitely long. And then let's go ahead and put it in the chamber and let the rifling finish seating the bullet, basically. And if we can get it out of there without getting the bullet stuck in the rifling, it should give us some idea. This method's not exactly precise, but it gets us, in the ballpark. Ah, interesting. Have a look at our cantilever. We're pretty much almost there, aren't we? Interesting. And the overall length of that is 2.262. That's wild. So that means at magazine length, I am pretty darn close to the rifling in this barrel. All right, I've pulled it out again. There it is. Now let's do it again. All right, here's the second one. It looks to be just about the same with the cantilever. And I'm getting a number of 2.263. Wow, that's surprising. Well, that kind of messes up my plans. It's interesting. So my original plan was to shoot one 5-shot group at standard overall length and then shoot a second 5-shot group with the overall length stretched out a little bit so we could get closer to the rifling. We're already there, man. We're like 10 thousandths off the rifling at the factory overall length. So I guess we'll just do 10-shot groups at, our standard overall length. I guess we'll do like 2.255, something like that. Yeah, once we get to bullet seating, we'll nail down the exact number. But that's it. Yeah, so that's our seating depth. All right, so there's really only one more question to answer before we get started, and so this is our Hornady bullet seating die that we're going to use. This is just a standard, what do they call them? The custom grade 22 caliber bullet seating die with their micrometer adjuster on top. So let's pull out there we go. This is our seating stem, and let's see how it interacts with the bullet here. Oh, that feels weird. That feels bad and weird. I think it must be making contact right at the seam between the tip. Yeah, that's bad. Between the tip and like the jacket or whatever, I think it's hitting in the exact bad place we don't want to hit. So luckily I've got at least this second stem for 22 caliber. This is made for the Hornady ELD Match and AMAX bullets. So let's hope this one is a little bit better. Oh, that's worse. That's 100 times worse. It's awful. What the heck? What the heck? All right, we may be using a different die after all. Let me look around for some stuff. All right, so I pulled out a bunch of seating dies and tried them out. So the Forster Ultra Micrometer seating die, I did find One of my seating stems for this guy was a pretty darn nice fit. Unfortunately, this seating stem is cracked, and yeah, but that would have been a really nice choice, but it's cracked. The Lee, just a standard Lee, I think they call these their dead length bullet seating die, just standard 223 Lee die. So its stem was not too bad either. So yeah, the first two I looked at weren't too bad, but ended up with this the Frankfurt Arsenal universal bullet seating die. Can you see that? Yeah, this guy right here. I'll get the instructions out of the way. I haven't had this that long and haven't really played with it. Dropping more stuff. Haven't played with it a ton, but it comes with 3 different stems. Tilt down a little bit there. There we go. Kind of a short, medium, and long deal. And looking through these, the biggest one, the short biggest one, it's a little bit too big, but both of these smaller ones are not too bad. Let's try the other one here. Yeah, see, I think this one's going to be the ticket. I'm afraid this one, if it's not making contact right at the junction between the tip and the jacket, it's pretty darn close. So yeah, I'm afraid that guy's maybe putting pressure where we don't want it. This guy looks like it might be big enough to where it'll be on down below there a touch, perhaps, and make halfway decent contact. There we go. So that's our bullet seating plan. All right, so I'm gonna get this die put together, and then I'm gonna measure out our powder charges, which is super boring. So I'll just see you guys at the bullet seating die. All right, so I think for today, we're gonna use the Lyman All-American 8 turret press. I've got our seating die here. It's still loose. I haven't, I thought it was loose. I haven't adjusted anything yet. So we are at an advantage since we've got some factory ammo that we know we want to clone more or less. So let's go ahead and run one of these up in here. I've got the fine adjustment right around the middle of the adjustment scale, and then let's see if this will go low enough. Okay, I think that's pretty close to it right there. But actually the first bullet we're going to seat is the Hornady. So yeah, it doesn't really matter anyway, but we'll back it out and start from scratch. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is the brass yet in this video. We're using brand new Lake City brass primed with CCI number 41 primers. Yeah, these guys right here, which is the closest thing we get in the commercial market to, you know, military style primers for 5.56. Okay, let's start there. I don't really have an overall length ready for these Hornadies. I figured we'd just seat them until the cantilever looks just about right. I don't think I'm going to have enough adjustment here with this bullet. Nope. Let's try screwing the body down a little bit. And that's about all it's got. Yeah, this guy right here is what we're supposed to be using for 22 caliber bullets. And it actually fits this Hornady just perfect. So I'll tell you what, let's do that real quick. Why not? All right, hopefully I haven't broken this die. I screwed it down so far that I got the seating stem stuck in here, it looks like. That's just freaking wonderful. It eventually pulled right apart. Weird. All right, let's switch over to this longer stem and should be able to put this back up in here and screw it down until I feel contact. About right there, maybe. Yeah, that's much better. Now I'm just seating it down until we get about the right depth on the cantilever. Right now we're still a little bit high. So come down another, could probably go almost 100. Tell you what, let's go 75. See where that puts us. Now we're getting pretty close. Yep, that's just about perfect. See what the overall length looks like right now. Yep, right now it's 2.253, which I think in Hornady's manuals they call out 2.26 or 2.250. So this will be perfect. I think we'll probably call that good right there. Let's seat the next one and see if we get the same number. Next one's 2.255. And the next is 2.253. Perfect. Yep, so good to go there with the Hornadies. I'm still learning this seating die. It seems okay. I've used it a couple times, but picking the right seating stem and all of that stuff. I think the other day we were trying to use it for 300 blackout, and it ended up working for us, I think, in the end. But it was a struggle to get there. I think what we ended up having to do was use this long and skinny seating stem, even though we were shooting 30 caliber bullets, and some of them, you know, big 30 caliber bullets for 300 blackout subsonics. So this universal kit might have some situations where it's really just not a very good option. I don't know. We'll get to that eventually. Eventually I'll make a video on this die. All right, next is the M855a1 Bullets. So let's switch back to our other seating stem. And drop in the correct one. And now we're good to go. I'll tell you what, I'm going to start over from scratch. I'm going to take the adjustment knob down until about the middle of the adjustment range, somewhere in that neighborhood. Then we'll loosen up the die and raise the body again real quick, and then go back to one of our factory rounds. Right there. Okay. Now, should be able to screw this down until I feel it hit. All right, I think that's good for the height, the height of the body. Man, I just barely have any room to work. Tell you what, at least I think so. Let's go ahead and see if we can seat one. It's another thing on this die. There's like this floating neck thingy. Sometimes it seems to get stuck upward. I don't know that that's a problem, but it's a little bit annoying. Okay, that seated the bullet a little ways. Went nice and smooth. Yeah, we're not anywhere close. Here, I'll show you how high we are. Yeah, see how high that is? I'll tell you what, let me see how... this longer stem is what we might end up having to go with. I don't like how close to the junction of tip and body it makes contact. But you know what? This stem is just not going to be long enough to get the job done. So yeah, it is what it is. Well, what can you do, you know? So if it starts messing up bullets, then we'll stop and reassess the situation. But sometimes I obsess a little bit too much about perfect seating stem fit. When the good thing about these loads, they're not compressed, which compressed loads sometimes, you know, you got to worry a little bit more about the seating stem fit because the amount of force that's at work there. So yeah, I lost my train of thought, but whatever. I seated this one down a little bit farther and don't see any new damage on the bullet or anything. So we're probably still 100 thousandths from where we need to be. Let's go 75. All right, now we're getting pretty close. Let's see what our overall length looks like. 2.290 right now. So we're about 40 thousandths. Tell you what, there's 35 thousandths. Let's see what that one looks like. And that actually looks really nice. Good cantilever alignment. We can go a couple more thousandths if we want to. But at 2.254, that looks like it's in the ballpark. Let's go ahead and seat a couple more and take a few more measurements. Tell you the seating force doesn't seem excessive, and I'm not seeing any damage to the ogive, you know, more than what was already there that we showed earlier in the video. So I think that's good. This one's 2.256. Tell you what, one more that's a little bit longer. We might go down a couple more thousandths, maybe 3 thousandths. And 2.253. I tell you what, let's leave it right there. Let's call this good. And since we had our bullet comparator out from earlier, we might as well hook it up to our calipers and get a cartridge-based ogive measurement here. Very similar to our bullet-based ogive measurement, except this time we're going to the base of the brass. Okay, there we are, 1.864. Now this should be a pretty consistent number. This one's pretty close, 1.8635, half a thousandth different. Let's seat a couple more and we'll verify that number's looking consistent. Okay, there's the first 5. 1.864. Yeah, this one's 1.861. Good bit shorter. 1.866. Yeah, this is pretty gross. 1.860. 1.860. Yeah, and then back to those first two we already checked it down around 1.863. So quite a bit of variation there. And I'm not sure exactly why that would be, other than maybe, you know, it's the same error that I, you know, measured whenever I was measuring bullet base to ogive. It's coming through here as well. There we go. That one's 1.864. So it looks like some of them are close, but might be a bit more variation than we're used to seeing with normal match bullets. And I'll tell you what, I'll show you an example. So like our first ones, and plus just to kind of double check our seating die and stuff, our first rounds with the Hornady bullet, I expect them to be extremely consistent, within 1 or 2 thousandths at most. First one is 1.868. Yep, I promise it is. Next one's 1.868. The next one is 1.868. You get the idea, right? Next one's 1.868. So normally a very consistent measurement that we're not seeing very consistent here. So it's either, you know, the seating stem we're using is just not capable of seating these bullets with that sort of precision, or something about the place that we're measuring them with the bullet comparator is maybe it's hitting that spot where, you know, like we've previously mentioned, the little bit of a wrinkle in the ogive. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to get around it or make things better. So we'll just roll with it. So that's pretty much it, folks. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. So let's go ahead and get out on the range. Okay, folks, it's time to get started. We've got a target at 100 yards using the shot marker electronic target system that you'll see up here. Up in the top right-hand corner, you can follow along as we shoot, and it'll show you the group size, and it shows you velocity at the target. Velocity on this end, we're getting from the lab radar chronograph, and we'll, get those averages and stuff as we shoot. We're going to start out with the Hornady bullets. So this is 26.7 grains of our mystery powder from our M855a1, and the 62 grain Hornady Botel hollow point, loaded at standard 2.260 inch overall length, or a little bit shorter than that. It was 2.255, I think. So let's see, the gun has got an 18-inch white oak armament barrel with a 1-in-7 twist. I've got my Silencer Co. Omega suppressor screwed on, and I think we're ready to shoot. We'll start out with the first 5, so, you know, we'll eventually get to a 10-shot group here. I have warmed up the gun. We've been shooting a couple sighters. Looks like we should be good to go, but just in case, first couple shots, I'll zoom out a touch. We'll shoot at this center dot here. So let's get started. I need to arm the chronograph. Make sure the can's on tight. Yeah, that's a good point. Should probably put it on safe. Yeah, there we go. Yep, can's on tight. Now I'm back to scratch, getting my my rear bag settled in. Okay, velocity 3138. See if I can track down that piece of brass. All right, so the velocity on this first shot was pretty darn high. Yeah, it was 3138, and I was able to track down the piece of brass. The primer actually looks a little bit flattened, but otherwise it's in good shape. Like, it doesn't look too bad. I haven't shot enough of these bullets to know what sort of velocities we can normally hit with it, but that seems like, you know, toward the top end, I guess. All right, let's see if they group. Let's zoom in on our target just a little bit. All right, let's see what happens. Okay, how'd the first 5 group? You know, we've definitely seen worse. 1.29 inches. Looks like velocity was pretty consistent, at least at the target end. Shows an SD of 7.5 down there. Let's see what it was at the target for the first 5. Yeah, the numbers are pretty good. Average velocity 3134, standard deviation 8.3, and extreme spread of 21. So pretty close to what it's showing at the target. Okay, arm the chronograph again. Let's load up 5 more of them. All right, let's continue on. Let's make it a 10-shot group. Okay. Not too bad. Looks like our second 5, that was a better group. Let's hide the first 5. So we know the total group size 1.29 inches. I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and write this stuff down. Got to keep records, I guess. Okay, so our final 10-shot group size was 1.29 inches. Velocity average was 31.34, which is pretty fast for that bullet. Standard deviation was 8.3, and extreme spread was 21. Those are really good numbers. Like, those are really good numbers. And, you know, that's the most important thing when we're evaluating this powder, you know, is what the velocity statistics look like. We get the right bullet in front of it, or, you know, even maybe this bullet, which isn't necessarily shooting perfect. We tweak the seating depth a little bit or something to clean up the group size and maintain those same excellent velocity statistics. This would be an excellent powder. I don't know how temperature sensitive it is, or, you know, any of those other things, but from the most generic of measurements, it looks like a pretty good powder. Now let's look at the group here. If we get rid of the first shot, it goes down to 1.14 inches. All right, so it's not going to be super dramatic, it doesn't look like. So let's hide the first 5 shots we took and have a look. Yeah, actually, so the second group was 1.14 inches. It just it was a little more horizontal, where the first group was a little more vertical. So, you know, not the worst thing in the world, I guess. We can live with that. So let's go ahead and save this target. Okay, moving right along. Next, we're moving on to the M855a1 Bullets. That's what we're here for, right? So the first powder is going to be, this is a 5-shot group with Power Pro varmint. So this one's just going to be 5-shot groups. The next couple groups are going to be 10, but this one's just 5. So 23.5 grains of Power Pro varmint. Same overall length as factory, all of that crap. All right, let's see what happens. Velocities are going to be low, and that's totally good. Like, that's the safe side. I was a little bit freaked out about loading with this bullet, so tried to stay on the safe side. Hopefully our velocities come in pretty low. Let's shoot at the left-hand dot. All right, that felt pretty weak. Like, yeah, it felt kind of weak. Velocity 2643, that's perfect. Looks like we're on target. That's a good start. All right, let's see if they group. All right, that one went really high, didn't it? Okay, so 1.59 inches, pretty close to what it used to be. Okay, so 1.59 inch group, velocity average was 2646, so like 400 feet per second slower than our normal, you know, M855a1 tests. But that's okay, we're not freaking out about that. Standard deviation 7.4, extreme spread of 19. So good velocity consistency, everything but a good group, just kind of a crappy group. Okay, so our next group is going to be 22.5 grains of AR comp. I did run down the brass from that first group, and it all looked just fine. I wasn't too worried about it because of the velocities, right? If things are going to go bad, it'll probably be accompanied by an extremely high velocity, so I wasn't too concerned. All right, so let's move on. Let's start out with the first 5 shots. 22.5 grains of AR comp. All right, velocity a little bit higher that time, 2912. Still okay, I think, but it's high enough to where I do want to see if I can find that piece of brass. Okay, I found it, and it looks pristine, looks great. Yeah, no problems whatsoever. Let's go ahead and finish off the group. All right, how we look? Hey, 0.88 inches. That's not too bad at all. We've seen much worse. All right, let's see what the velocity looks like. Of course, my freaking lab radar is being an idiot right now. So an interesting thing happened on that last group. So that first velocity, the 2,912 feet per second there, where I went and grabbed a piece of brass and made sure it looked okay. Well, after that shot, the velocity went way down. So like the second shot was 2828. It's like 90 feet per second lower. So we had 2828, 2841, 2842, and 2846. So it looks like that first shot might have just been kind of crazy high or something like that. But group looked pretty good, 0.88 inches. I'll take it. So because of that one crazy velocity, our standard deviation was 33.1 and extreme spread of 83. So that's not good. All right, folks, here we go. 5 more shots. Ooh, gross. Oh, that's gross. 2.33 inches is the final group. All right, so the final numbers are a 2.33 inch group, average velocity 2852, standard deviation 24.9, so that got a little bit better since the first 5, and extreme spread of 87. So, awful. Let's say, so what made this group as bad as it is? Oh, the 6th shot went way up here. What are you doing up there? Let's hide that. Okay, the other 9 went into 1.37 inches. But beyond that, there's not really much you can hide to make things look any better, right? I mean, maybe 8 gets you a little bit. Yeah, get you down to 1.1, but not really. That's where it was wanting to shoot them, and that's not a very tight group whatsoever. All right, so we got one more group to go, and it is with IMR 8208 XBR, 22.5 grains of it. My hopes are not that high, to be quite honest with you. I'm running out of hope that we're going to see a good group with these bullets, which was always kind of a crazy thing to expect anyway, right? I mean, it is what it is. All right, here we go. All right, where are we at? 1.52 inches. Hey, let's see, one of our pieces of brass was laying right here. Velocity was really low, 26.27 the last shot was, so I didn't really, didn't worry too much about stopping to pick some up and look at it. Yeah, so we ended up with a 1.52 inch group, average velocity 26.45, standard deviation 21.0, extreme spread 54. Pretty gross. Should probably fill up our magazine. Need to move us up just a touch, right? Yeah, maybe. Hopefully they'll stay within that group. All right, we got 5 more shots in the magazine. Let's see what happens. All right, well, how about that, I guess? 1.52 inches. All right, so our group did not grow. 1.52 inches for 10 shots. By far our best result for today. And let's see, 26.39 was our average velocity. Extreme spread of 77, standard deviation 25.9. So not the greatest velocity numbers there with 8208 XBR, but did give us our best group. So our group didn't get any bigger. So how big was the second 5? Let's hide the first 5 shots. All right, so the second 5 shots went into 1.30 inches. So, you know, better, but nothing crazy. It didn't exactly stack them right in there or anything. So just kind of is what it is, man. I mean, this gun wants to shoot these guys to, you know, 1.5 to 2.5 inches. And there's nothing we were able to do about that as reloaders. So I guess if you've been holding your breath, waiting for these 855a1 bullets to make their way out into the market for reloaders, this is what you're waiting for, you know, like we've got a whole lot better options out here in the civilian market, it seems. All right, so let me get packed up. Let's get back to the bench. We'll talk about some final thoughts up there before we sign out.